Hi and welcome back to my channel. I am the Spell Singer and this is my ongoing review of the Fighting Fantasy Gamebook series. And in this review I'm going to cover this book and title, read the blurb, talk about the plot, look at the game mechanics and adventure sheet, and then talk a little bit about my own likes and dislikes, any fun facts, any errors, and finish on a summary and score. But before I get into all that, I just want to say a little thanks to 5 random subscribers just to show a bit of appreciation. So that's Sean Nash, Vukasin Davik, Mag Raps, Velo Dermchev, and Flaming Heron. Flaming Heron, yes, thank you so much. Flaming Heron's actually someone who subscribes to Adam Pestridge, his channel, that I think I gave him a shout out in my first review of Warlock. So that's obviously a little get together that Adam Pestridge puts on where he reads the book. And at the time of this recording, May 24, this is still ongoing. We're on book 40 something or other. And Flaming Heron is just one of the chat that makes all the decisions with the rest of us. We don't complete many of the books, but yeah, the fun's in the journey, right? So yeah, this is book 22, Robot Commando. This came out in 1986 and is by American Steve Jackson. Now this is his third and final book for this series, which is a shame because this guy was really good at writing open plan, open world books. And he does an equally good job with this one. So we've got David Martin doing this fantastic cover, which kind of looks a bit, I don't know, Transformers, like 1980s cartoon Transformers to me. But inside internal artwork, we have Gary Mays doing a great job portraying as much, or as best as he can, certainly, the excellent work of Steve Jackson. So, let's read the blurb. We've got here, past and future meet in the land of Thalos. What would you do if you were a rancher on a distant planet using robots to herd vicious dinosaurs? What would you do if your deadly enemies, the Karosseans, invaded? What would you do if you knew that the protection of your homeland against the invaders and marauding dinosaurs was up to you alone? Now is your chance to find out. For all this is exactly what happens in this thrilling futuristic adventure. Okay. So, let's talk about the plot for this book. We've got here an adventure where you take the role of a dinosaur rancher in the country of Thalos on a distant planet, and you find yourself in the middle of an attack by Thalos's mortal enemies, the militaristic Karosseans, or it might be pronounced Karosseans, I don't know. A strange weapon is unleashed which causes all of Thalos, so your whole country, save you to fall asleep. Now, it's not really explained why you don't fall asleep, just you. But it would be a pretty lame book if you fell asleep, because then the adventure would just be like a big dream or something. I don't know, but it's never explained. Yeah, so save you. They all fall into this deep slumber. And basically, over the course of the adventure, you get the opportunity to control a variety of giant robots. And you battle against dinosaurs and the Karossean invaders while looking for a way to rouse your countrymen. Now, so all in all, yeah, you're basically a dinosaur herder on this country of Thalos, and yeah, use your robots to do pretty much everything. One day the Karosseans, they show up, they release this sleeping agent, like I say, across the whole world. It sends everyone asleep, and it's up to you to save the day. So standard really, by either waking them up or defeating the head Karossean. So typical Steve Jackson, you've got a few different options and several different endings. So it's not just one true path. In this adventure, you've got a few options. You can decide which ones you think are best. Yeah, so the mission involves you wandering around or flying around, depending on your robot that you've chosen, from one city to the next, trying to discover this cure to this sleeping sickness. or by infiltrating the invaders' headquarters and killing Karossean boss Minos. Yeah, so you've got a choice, 3 choices in fact. Those were the 2 main ones, but the final one where you can fight the boss, you can either fight him in your robot or you can fight him hand to hand. And that's the story. Quite unusual, but just as much fun as his other books, Demons of the Deep and Scorpion Swamp. Let's take a look at the game mechanics and the adventure sheet for this book. Now, there is very little personal combat in this adventure. Instead, your skill determines the success of your robot combat. There are a few personal punch-ups, but not many to be had in this one. The robot combat really makes this book quite interesting and unique. Each robot has a speed, and many have combat bonuses, like weapons or some kind of addition that you can add to your robot to make it better or improve it in some way. So yeah, the slower robots in battle, they fight with a skill penalty, whereas the faster robots, they fight with like an enhanced skill, which kind of adds a bit of realism. The combat bonuses, that stat basically means that robots designed for combat have a greater firepower, and therefore you can do much more damage. Now, the actual combat is no real different from the personal combat of all the other books, which is good really, because you don't want a new combat system every time you have something a little bit different. So when you're in a robot, you still have your skill, but your stamina is more called, well, I think it's called armor. I'll put up a little graphic here so you can have a look and see what it shows or it's represented as in the actual book. So it's the same as before. You still roll your 2 dice for the skill, and you add that dice roll to your whatever your skill is, and that's your attack strength. You do the same for the enemy robot, and that's his or her attack strength. And you then, whoever the winner is, whoever's the highest attack strength, takes 2 points from their armor until they're a pile of scrap. So yeah, no real change in the combat, but you can have these enhancements, these combat bonuses I mentioned. They might be something like add 1 to your attack strength or add 2 to your attack strength, something that just to give it a little bit of variety. So you've got to be on the lookout for these enhancements as you go through the adventure. So yeah, this book is the first in the series to introduce robots, like mechs almost, and you can use these to help yourself travel around. It's a bit like Pacific Rim, a little bit like that. So think Pacific Rim when you read Robot Commando. And although there is the usual individual combat, albeit at a lessened rate, most of the fighting is robot versus robot, or of course robot versus dinosaur. And each opponent is fought in this way, and you have all these statistics like armor, speed, and the speed can be slow, medium, fast, or very fast. Combat bonuses as well, like I mentioned, the special abilities, and they all affect the fighting. But speed is used mostly for escaping, if an escape option is actually given to you. So the higher your speed, the more chances you have of making a getaway if things are going south. There are opportunities to gain stat bonuses throughout this book for your robot, and you can, help the weaker characters get by. For example, if you have a interface transponder, then your skill, if your skill is lower than 11, then you can add a skill bonus to bump it up a bit. And it's quite rare for you to take personal damage, get injured in this book, unless you get attacked directly by your robot, or your robot gets destroyed. So you maybe get attacked directly by a guard or a soldier, but most of the combat, like I say, is robot on robot. Now, the luck tests are quite rare, and the instant fails are quite rare as well. And any that are used are quite sparingly throughout the book, and there are a few sort of instances, but you kind of get a bit of a clue when they're coming, which is always a good thing. The medikits, so usually you get your 10 provisions, right? But in this you just get 5 medikits, I think it is, and they give you 1 point of stamina each, which I thought was a bit tight. And you can see it here in the adventure sheet. So you've got your skill, stamina, and luck as normal, but you've got your possessions there as well with your sword and your 5 medi kits. There aren't many items to be had or found in this book, so hence the quite small box there to put them in. But yeah, there's only a few essential things. Most of the, to be honest, I think the most important 2 you can get are the 2 items or ingredients you need to make up this potion to cure the sleep curse. So yeah, not an awful lot. But then below that, you've got your robot boxes. So it describes obviously your armor, your speed, and then they weirdly have combat and bonus separate. So combat would equal 1 score and then bonus the other, whereas it should be combat bonus, not split like that. And you'd think instead of having bonus as a separate box, really that should be the special skill, because like I say, some of these robots have a special skill, so you want to put that in there. So yeah, the adventure sheet leaves a little bit to be desired. Let's say that. I don't know, it just feels a bit rushed, but is what it is. Otherwise, yeah, no real change, just the second half with the robot details and such. Right, just going to chat a little bit about the artwork in this book. So I really like David Martin's vivid and colourful cover. So you got the cover here, which stands out really nicely with all these colours, and obviously it kind of tells you everything about what is going to be going on or what to expect in this book. So kind of like the Transformer, like I mentioned, fighting the dinosaur there. Now, most Final Fantasy covers, they often veer on the kind of dark and brooding side. So it's nice to see a bit of an upbeat image that reflects the contents really nicely. And the title kind of flashes out at you as well. I think even more so on the green banner rather than the dragon banner. But it's still a really eye-catching cover. The title kind of flashes out at you in a way, and I think that's something that kind of draws you back into these books. We always used to say like the artwork would kind of draw you in and be the first thing you saw, certainly in the old days when they were on the shelves, and kind of enticed you into buying the book in the first instance. The Gary Mays artwork as well is really strong. It's got this suitably shiny metallic feel to everything, and it captures the book nicely. There are a few curious pictures here and there, but all in all, they complement the story really well. As always, I've got a favourite picture here. This looks like Starscream, right, from Transformers. But I do like it. Yeah, he really captures that kind of robotic image really nicely. But yeah, every time I look at this, I just think of Starscream. Yeah, all the artwork is of a high quality, and especially the robots and dinosaurs. But there's a lot of landscape imagery in this book as well. So yeah, all works really nicely to complement the prose and adventure. Right, likes and dislikes for this book. There's not too much imagination in the city names that you go to visit. There's a whole bunch of cities, and you kind of, like I say, it's open world. You kind of fly around or walk around depending on your robot, and you check out these cities to find out a bit about what's going on there and what can help you. But there's next to no imagination in the title. So for example, you've got the City of Knowledge, where you get lots of clues as to what's happening. There's libraries there and whatnot. The City of Industry, which is kind of like a technological advanced city. It focuses on the robotics more than anything else. Then you have the City of Worship, which is where you can get all your stats boosted, or opposite to that, get penalties. And then you've got the City of Jungle, which is mostly jungle and not really city at all by memory. The City of Storms, which is kind of self-explanatory. And the City of Guardians is a place where you can get new robots, you get kitted out in all these cool new robots. And then there's also the City of Pleasure. Yeah, the City of Pleasure. So not as bad as it might sound. You can access a whole load of useful kit in there and play video games and kind of level up, because of course you play video games that are based on flying these robots, and you can actually level up and increase your own skill by doing so. Kind of makes sense. And then you've got the capital city, which is where the Karosseans headquarters is, the final stop, if you like. And if you're playing to destroy the Karossean threat, that's kind of where you want to head. So yeah, there's a little bit of, I don't know, it just felt like they could have come up with some names for those cities, but it's not really a big deal. But the rest of it, I really enjoyed. It was a really good book, lots of strong points, lots of strong writing, great artwork, open world. And if you love investigating and exploring these books, then this one is for you. Okay, fun facts. Robot Commando is one of the few entries in the series to feature multiple successful endings. Now, if you know your American Steve Jackson, then you'll know that's kind of his thing, as opposed to like the multiple methods of reaching the one successful ending. So he's got all these different paths you can take to take one of 3 successful endings. So again, 400 is not the final page. It's just a normal page with some options at the bottom. So yeah. And I really like that about these books. I've always liked that about American Steve Jackson. This book is one of 2, the other being Seas of Blood, where on the original publication with the Adventure Gamebooks banner, the words of Adventure Gamebooks and the number are in black instead of white. One for the geeks. And also this was the first Puffin gamebook to feature a tagline separate from the blurb. So yeah, little addition there as well. Errors. Now there's only a couple I thought I'd mention. The rules, it's not really an error, but the rules are a bit unclear with the sort of skill. Now, if initial skill can or can't be exceeded, it needs to be clear, right? We've had this discussion before. So on page 10, it states that although you may be awarded additional skill, stamina, and luck points, these totals may never exceed the initial score unless something specifically occurs to change your initial score, unless it says so, right? And then on reference 18, it says your skill score can never exceed its initial value, right? However, immediately after the sentence on reference 18, the rules also state, however, bonuses from artifacts or robots with like combat bonuses, they can add to your skill no matter how high your level is. So the book does not really clarify further what constitutes a bonus, and the text threat treats the bonuses sort of a bit inconsistently, while the bonuses on references 79, 296, 334 and 392 all add just 1 skill point to either the robot's usage or personal combat. But then on the bonus on 352 explicitly adds 1 to the initial score for personal combat only as well. So yeah, it's a little bit confusing. I think I read it like 3 times and I still didn't get it. So put a comment in the in below if you think you worked that out, because I didn't know. And in the end, I went with what I thought was right, which is your skill cannot be increased, above its initial. The adventure sheet lists, like I mentioned, that combat and bonus as 2 separate lines, whereas it should be just combat bonus. And the adventure sheet enemy encounter boxes have like a combat bonus as well. So they have that field for the robot and dinosaur enemies. But this is kind of meaningless, as these foes don't have a combat bonus score. The book provides their skill scores instead. So yeah, it just felt a little bit rushed around the combat areas. Maybe it could have just been refined slightly. But overall, it works fine. Right, let's summarise, shall we? This book is really well written, apart from the ambiguity of the combat. It's good fun, stomping about the cities, changing your robots, fighting the dinosaurs, fighting other robots. There's a lot of codes that you have to remember for later on, helping you to prevent sort of those that like to cheat. So yeah, you can't really get around those codes. If you don't know them, you're not going to know where to turn to. And I've always liked that. I like that about Jonathan Green's books as well. He loves all those codes, right? So lots of codes to prevent cheating. And a bit like in Scorpion Swamp, there is also a "Have you been here before?" line at the top of certain references, so similar to Scorpion Swamp, and that's kind of an option, which means you can return to a place without having to fight a battle that you won previously. The cover is really good, internal illustrations really great, very high standard, and on the whole it's a solid game book. Now, similar again to Scorpion Swamp, There are actually 3 separate adventures. So the first one, you can cure that sleeping curse, by mixing those 2 ingredients and then installing that into the weather system so it rains it down on everyone. Or 2, destroy Minos in robot-on-robot combat, or you can defeat Minos in hand-to-hand combat, so whatever's your poison. Now that third one, that's the subtlest, I'd say. There are occasional mentions in this book of the importance of dueling for honour on these planets. And the Karosseans immediately submit to anyone who kills their current leader. So if you pick that up, that's going to be a good little clue to take with you into that final combat. This is the outcome that you need to sort of pay attention to, and look out for those clues in order to reach. And it's probably the most satisfying one as well. It's also the only one where personal combat really comes into play, against Minos. The curative outcome for the sleep slumber sort of curse is probably the quickest one to do, maybe the easiest, but it can leave you feeling a little bit underwhelmed perhaps, because it's quite a short route, possibly the quickest route. But entertainment value will always keep you coming back and revisiting this book to try and find out those other endings, just like Scorpion Swamp and to some extent a bit like Demons of the Deep as well. Exploring is everything in this one. These books, they draw you in and you're free to travel in any direction, going back and forth between the cities you may have already visited in search of things that you know or think are important. So you think, I've missed that, I'm going to go back to the city of industry or whatever and see if I can find it again. And like I say, you get those have you been here before at the beginning of the section, so you get a new reference to turn to, so you may or may not have to face the consequences of a previous visit. And this is probably the most non-linear fighting fantasy book, giving you lots of freedom to explore. So certainly out of the ones I've read, this is right up there with the most non-linear. There's also no true path, as you would expect, which removes the kind of usual frustration of failure by taking the wrong turn or not picking up that essential item that you have to have. And the cure obviously requires an antidote, so a couple of items there, but otherwise, items are minimal. Now, structurally, the open world makes a real change in the context of fighting fantasy and gives you the gamer or the reader a better experience. There are a couple of points where you can find yourself stuck in kind of like an endless loop, which is always a problem, which it may or may not be deliberate, but it's not a game breaker. You can sort of get out of it. So that's always good. The obvious emphasis is on free exploration, like I mentioned, and the robot experimentation, trying out different robots, seeing which ones work better in which parts of the book. And of course, when you ditch a robot, you can always go back to it and recover it later, depending on, you might not want it might be completely knackered, but there's that option as well. So it's very clever, very well written. So the emphasis is on that. Robot Commando is great fun to play, and is, along with Rebel Planet, remember we reviewed that one, and Rings of Kether, they're the only ones that are sort of the strong sci-fi books, in my opinion. Closely followed by Starship Traveller, perhaps, but those are the really strong ones, and this one is right up there with it. Rebel Planet, that was a tough one, and it was set in a well-designed sort of serious sci-fi universe, and of course Robot Commando, on the other hand, is kind of an entertaining romp, kept constantly varied by allowing you to pilot different robots, do all sorts of things, lots of interesting things. And it's unusually easy though. But that doesn't matter. It's this sheer appeal of being able to sort of play this game book that is unique, both structurally in the gameplay, that makes all the difference to me anyway. It's refreshing when a series tries to, or an author tries to, do something a bit different, and Robot Commando is about as different as it gets from sword and sorcery, right? The art, again, cover art is amazing. It implies that you don't necessarily fight with your sword anyway. You're in, it's more about robots and dinosaurs, so sort of like all this hardcore tech combat. So huge robots then, and I really respect American Steve Jackson for this adventure. And all in all, it's a commendable attempt to do something a little bit different. So, based on that, and when you sum it all up, I think I would probably give this book a high 7 out of 10 because it is different, it's varied, it's really interesting, it tries lots of new things, and Steve Jackson is never afraid to roll the dice and go for something a bit out there. Yeah, 7 out of 10. Right, I think that's the review. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say about the review. So I hope you liked it. If you did, maybe give it a thumbs up and always comment, because it's great to hear what your thoughts are on these as well. So let us know what you think. And if you know someone who you think might like this, then share it. And the next book is book 23, which is Masks of Mayhem by Robin Waterfield. So I'll be doing that one next. But in the meantime, take care, and I'll see you in the next review.